Hey there everybody. For this demo we are going to expand on what we know about responsive design and that we're going to look at responsive design via the media query. We're also going to look at expanding on what we know about developer created classes and IDs, and we're also going to expand on just how it is we as developers deliver to a user what they think or what they feel like is an experience that's tailored for their device, irrespective of whatever kind of device that is. So this here, so I'll just go all the way through. If you go in through modules, which I believe you probably already are, if we go in through modules and all the way down here in the session 7 module, we're looking at the display demo.html. Display demo essentially does this. It uses responsive design. So this here, everything you see from this side of the window to this side of the window is what display demo.html believes is its viewport. And as that viewport changes size, there we go, as that viewport changes size, you'll notice we go from a green background that says this is the large version to a blue background that says this is the medium version to an even smaller one that says this is the small version. The small version. So let's get that to go one more time. There we go. So there's our smaller version that says this is the small version. So we have 3 distinct displays, and those distinct displays are essentially controlled by the size of your viewport. So that is a media query, and that is nothing new. The new wrinkle here is you'll notice that the actual content that's displayed does change, right? So here we have the word large. When we go smaller, we have the word medium, and then we have small. So what can we do to do that? How can we expand on developer-defined content classes and IDs, and how is it that you might even further refine your design to really meet the expectations of a modern web, connoisseur, consumption aspect. So what we're going to do is go grab the display demo.html and open that in brackets. So once you grab a copy of that, let's go ahead and open that in brackets. I'm going to make this a little bit larger so that we're using this space in a way that makes sense. So everything you see in the way of content is actually here in these div statements. So essentially on lines 4 through 11, that is all of the user-facing content via the body. I have a div class called large, I have a div class called medium, and I have a div class called small. You'll notice that's where this is the large version, this is the medium version, and this is the small version come from. It's right there inside of these divs. Now in chapter 8, and again in chapter 11, you saw the idea that we see down here in our media queries. So before I get there, media queries, nothing new. You have seen these before. This is the media query for 64EM, which is our tablet. This is the media query for 37.5EM, and this is our smartphone display. And in here we have div.large, div.medium, and div.small, and those are the classes that I've created. Maybe we haven't done it in this way before. We would have had a hashtag or a dot, depending on whether or not we were doing an ID or a class. Oftentimes this is easier because a div manages that for you. A div container can be used multiple times over the course of a page. So it's essentially the same thing as the hashtag, or the dot rather, sorry, the dot for the class. So instead of, dot large, dot small, dot medium, I have that with the div here. It just, again, it is a user, or not a user, but the next developer in the chain facing concern. They're going to see that and go, oh, you mean that this is a div, so it's a class. And I have the idea here of display none or display block. You could, depending on your usage, inline block might be better, block might be better. They're your two options. Play around with them. Here in our, so this is essentially our desktop media query, right? So let me just show you what this looks like in a browser and show you how we can really make this work better for us. So if I was to view this in the browser, here's the problem. This is what my page turns out to be. You'll notice I have large, medium, and small visible here, whereas when I was in Eagle, we didn't see it. The reason we didn't see it is because we didn't know we could scroll down. This is not good design, but this is something that we can easily maintain, right? If we know how to not display, certain elements in our media queries, it's pretty easy for us to manage that, right? So display large, we want to be able to see it in our large media query, right? And here for our two smaller media queries, in medium and small, with our desktop query, we just don't want them to be viewed. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. If I come back and look at my desktop version, you'll notice that the blue box down here for medium and whatever box color it is for small are gone. So could we do better than this? What do we notice? The text is incredibly small, right? This is going to be difficult for your users to be able to see, even as far away as my monitor is now with the microphone on it is just over 18 inches away from my face. It is not incredibly easy to read this is large, whatever. So let's make this look a little bit better. Now, we can do that here in our desktop media query, or we could do it in our individual media queries, desktop, tablet, smartphone. If you'll recall, instead of having those percents or EMs, we had been experimenting with the VW or VH or VMin or VMax. Those are viewport width, height, viewport max or min, which is whichever one of the two of them is bigger. Let's try that here. So I want to type all in one place. I want to be able to say font size, and I want to have a control over this so that it's good on all of my device sizes and it's relative to all of the device sizes. So that's why I use the VW here. So I'm going to pick something like 10 VW. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go ahead and copy this, and I'm going to paste it in my medium and in my small divs, and I'm going to change these. I'm going to go 12 VW for medium. I'm going to go 15 VW for small, and I'm going to go ahead and save this. And let's go ahead and switch back over to see how this looks. Now, this is my large version, and you'll notice it's making much better use of the available space. As I go smaller, you'll notice I've got all this room in here, and it's maintaining its relative size. That's perfect. That's what I wanted to do. As I go smaller and I change to the medium version, you'll notice I don't have to do anything aside from change the size of my device or the size of my viewport. Those media queries automatically handle it for me. It automatically handles for me the text here, because now this entire div class is invisible to the user. It is essentially not there. So what this does is it allows me to tailor content for this device size. So this device size is the tablet device, simply by wrapping the content I want, this is the large version versus this is the medium version, in a div or in a class, and throwing it here inside of the body for my content. Same deal here. We've got VW managing the size, and you'll notice as my size increases or decreases, if I could get it to do it properly, the text is maintaining the same relative size based on the same relative size of my container. And lastly, and leastly, according by size anyway, here's the small version. So this is div.small. Because we are in our smartphone media query, div.small is visible, and div.medium and div.large are not. So use the ideas we talked about here with your final project. Not every piece of content needs to be displayed on every device type. I suggest to you pieces of content are actually better served not displayed on every device type. One of those things you might consider here, and consider this either a verbal breadcrumb trail or a useless piece of information that you can ignore, but think about the gallery. Now, is a hover type gallery the best kind of instrument to use on a small or on a medium media query? Is there any way for you to hover over an iPad or an Android tablet? Is there any way for you to hover over your phone in a way that makes, the hover gallery work? Maybe not. Maybe it's easier to, instead of trying to reformat the content that you have there, to simply ignore the content that you have in your desktop media query way over here and simply rewrite a different div for the smaller media queries that make more sense. So use this as a code base, use this as a springboard to be able to get more utility out of two things: your developer-defined classes and IDs, and your media query and the media query content.